my name's Anshika, and welcome back to The Unseen Pillars, a podcast dedicated to shining a light on the heroes behind the scenes of chronic illness and disease. If you haven't already listened, I really recommend going back and listening to episode 1 before we get started, just so that you can hear our mission statement and just why we're here in general. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, Miss Kim Moy, a chronic illness caregiver, advocate, coach, and founder of Caregiver Wisdom, which is her own platform. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the emotional landscape of caregiving, some common misconceptions about caregivers, and how this role impacts both patients and caregivers. We'll also be diving into burnout, grief, resilience, and the tools that can help caregivers navigate these hard experiences. I'm so excited for this conversation, so let's get into it. So great. Hello, everybody. I would like to, again, for the first time, give a very warm welcome to this episode's topic expert, Miss Kim Moy, who is the founder of her very own platform, Caregiver Wisdom, where she provides resources and advocates for caregivers everywhere, while also being one herself. Hi, Miss Moy. It's very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, to really start us off, I wanted to ask Miss Moy, do you think you could kind of walk us through your own caregiving journey over the years, like how it started, how it's been going, and just kind of like how you felt throughout it all?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. Um, so my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's back in 2010, and it was still early stages, but she just kept on repeating herself, right? And then it slowly progressed over time. In the meantime, I also met my husband, and we met in 2002 and got married in 2020. I'm sorry, 2005. And on our very first date, he told me that he had this very debilitating chronic illness called myalgic encephalomyelitis. It's also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. And I guess I should probably explain what that illness is about. It's a very debilitating, complex illness with no cure, and it hits multiple body systems. So millions of people in the US actually have this illness,
Yeah.
just at different severity levels. A lot of people with long COVID are now being diagnosed with the same illness. Um, it's basically unrelenting fatigue, other symptoms like body pain, brain fog, there could be GI symptoms. There's a whole bunch of things that could happen, and everyone's a little bit different. It's and the fatigue part is like you're like a battery, but you can't ever be fully charged. You're maybe operating at like 20 or 50% of your capacity. You can never come up to a full charge. So it can be really debilitating. In my husband's case, we got married, as like I mentioned before. We had two young children when felt like his health started taking a nosedive about a dozen or so years ago, and it got so bad where he had to basically leave his job. So, and that time, I was then caregiving for my husband, driving him to multiple doctor's appointments, also being a parent of two young boys, and also helping my sister caregive for elderly parents. Because at that point, my mom's Alzheimer's was getting progressively worse. So they were in assisted living, and yet, we still had to do a lot and really care for them. And then I was also working full time as a manager at a Silicon Valley company. So it just felt like I was being squeezed in all different directions. And my parents have since passed. My mom passed in 2020. My dad passed away a few months later in 2021. But my husband still needs caregiving. He still can't work. And so um, during those really hard times when I was getting really squeezed, I really was searching for ways to really figure out how to get through all this. So I was reading lots of books. I was attending webinars. I was seeing therapists, and I saw coaches, and I actually started training in Zen as well, and worked with my Zen teachers. And so through all of this, I've kind of come together and crafted ways of coping, and actually not just coping and surviving, but actually thriving. And so I wanted to really share that with others. And so I started a support group, first of all, a monthly support group that I still lead. And then I think it's been about 2.5 years ago, there was a reorg at my company, and they eliminated my position, which then made it more apparent to me that I really wanted to dive. I really was feeling that I wanted to support other fellow chronic illness caregivers just like myself beyond the support group. And I realized it was my time to just do it full time. So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I would like before we get into anything else, I just want to say that you are genuinely such an inspiration. Like it's so amazing to have gone through all of that and still be able to come up like you said, like not just surviving but also thriving and doing it in a way that you're helping other people as well. It's so amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just hope to share what I have learned over the years to shorten that sense of overwhelm and deer caught in headlights and that feeling of just like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna get through this? If I can shorten that a period of time for any other caregiver, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, and I know like stuff like this, it can happen so fast, like you won't even realize. And I know like my mom too, like she was a caregiver, but she was a caregiver along with like a lot of other people in our family. But
Mhm.
I feel like she never really realized how much had changed over time since she started giving this care and like helping this family until
Right.
like very later on. And so I kind of want to just ask, was there any like specific moment that you had where it was kind of like, wow, like everything's like changing, like this light bulb moment all at once where it kind of hits you all at once.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Um, I have to go back in time, and I think that for my mom, it hit me really hard, having her diagnosed with Alzheimer's, even though but I'll be honest, I'll backtrack a little bit. I've been very close to my parents, especially my mom growing up, as a child, and I already sense that someday my parents are going to get old, and they're going to require help, and I'm going to need to step it up. And even at a young age, like when I was a teenager, I started thinking about it and thinking like, "Oh, wow, that day is going to come." So I think mentally and emotionally, I kinda knew I would eventually need to step into that role, but it's very different when you actually have to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that diagnosis definitely really kicked it up a notch. And then with my husband, I think when he just, kinda gradually got sicker and sicker, and just watching him not be able to work and do the things that he wanted to do to be to play with our kids, it just kind of, like you said, kinda crept up on me, and I didn't really realize it until, it got to the point where he had to take, disability. He had to leave his job for a bit to try to recover. Unfortunately, he never has, but, just going through those kind of, um, I guess what we'd say kind of, events or moments, and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I am in a different stage now." Yeah, so I really what you just shared about your mom really resonates with me too.
Yeah, and I kind of just wanted to bring it up cuz I feel like a big part of understanding the mental health in this situation is knowing when, like realizing yourself, like knowing yourself enough to know when you need help, but also knowing yourself enough to know when stuff is happening.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to just do you like this is another thing that I like to include in my episodes. So I know like in my last episode I talked about the misconceptions of mental health and the stigma around getting help and stuff like that. So I wanted to ask that in this sense. After experiencing yourself for like all these years, what are some misconceptions that you see with caregivers?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. The biggest misconception is, well, actually, there's a few. Mostly that I don't have time to take care of myself because I'm too busy taking care of all the things that need to get done. And I was in that mentality for quite a while. because I was all about getting things done and taking care of everything. I was used to being the problem solver. I was used to being the person managing it all and juggling all of the balls in the air, and usually pretty good about keeping them all up and running. And then you start realizing that you're shortchanging yourself. You're shortchanging yourself on sleep. You're shortchanging yourself on anything that has to do with restoration. So, I currently have a daily meditation practice, but at that time I did not, right?
Yeah.
Some people, for some people it's meditation, for some people it's just taking a quick walk outside or having tea, a quiet cup of tea for 5 minutes. But to do something for yourself every day, um, we provide that self-care instead of just feeling really drained and exhausted all the time. Because what has happened to me is when I got to that point, I started snapping at people
Yeah.
and and having a short temper because it is stressful and you feel a lot of responsibility. But when you don't have that, that sense of having reserves, really, then it's so easy to be mad at people that you love, and which is not good for anyone, right?
Yeah, and honestly, like these misconceptions, I absolutely despise them because I just like they're so outdated and they don't have a place. But again, unfortunately, it's so common to have these misconceptions. But as like for all my listeners, as a person who's hearing these misconceptions, the way that you can help is not by just like listening to it and being passive, but explaining how wrong they can be, or honestly just listening to people who have gone through it. Because if you're listening to advice or listening to not advice, but like if you're listening to topics about like this from people who haven't gone through it and they're telling you about what it's like, it's honestly it's not always going to be right. And so it's important to really like focus on not everyone knows what they're talking about, but what you tell other people should be from a trusted source, and it should be right if you're going to tell anyone, especially about topics as serious as mental health.
Yeah.
So, obviously, dealing with these types of misconceptions, dealing with all these strong emotions, and just overall, like the pressure that you have from being a caregiver, it's gonna pile up, and we'll see that in almost everyone. It's not just caregivers, everyone around these kinds of topics, it's gonna pile up. And being the support system, especially, it's never gonna be really super easy. And saying easy, it's relative. So, it's never going to be what we think it's going to be like. So I want to get into this kind of hidden side of this problem of what tends to happen behind closed doors. Like no one's going to see someone going through it cuz they'll keep it to themselves. And I feel like it's really important for me to bring it out here and have an open space to talk about it cuz I know for a fact that almost every caregiver has gone through topics like this. So I want to talk about the burnouts, the grief that we feel but we can't share cuz we feel like it's not our place to share, and just the isolation that you feel as someone who's taking care of another loved one.
Oh,
And
thanks. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, those are great topics. So with burnout, boy, that is a huge topic. And I actually have a burnout quiz that I've created on my website that's free for anyone who wants to take it and see, am I really burned out? And oftentimes we don't realize it. It's kind of like a slippery slope. It just keeps on building, especially if you don't have those restorative practices. Um, so burnout, I think, is something that it's sometimes we need someone else to even tell us like, hey, maybe you need to take a break, or can I do something to help you take something off of your plate, right? So burnout is a really big topic in terms of and so what I talk about in both the support groups and the group course that I teach, the group course is called Thrive as a Caregiver. I pretty much teach all of the things that I've learned along the way to help prevent burnout. And there are multiple strategies and things. And the first is, again, having that restorative time for yourself. And there's lots of things that are short and easy and free that you can do. And just to make sure you do them every day, right? Just a few minutes here, a few minutes there, they can really transform and make a huge difference in your life. Um, The other topic of ambiguous grief and ambiguous loss is another key part of what I talk about with caregivers I work with, and something that I experience, continue to
Yeah.
experience, right? So, yeah, ambiguous loss is basically the special type of grief that happens when you're grieving for the person you love who is still alive. It's because they are a different version of themselves, a different version of what you remembered them to be. And so you're grieving for what you used to have, what you thought your life would still be like, and maybe you may be grieving the loss of a future you had imagined with your loved one. So there's multiple layers to this. And then, so I think one of the things about addressing ambiguous loss is to acknowledge and understand what it is,
Yeah.
right? And then the second part, there's a lot of different strategies that I talk about. I have a blog post about it on my website as well. But I will say that another really important topic is this idea of non-attachment, which is basically not attaching to what you used to have or what you thought it would be like or what you wanted to have, but really having radical acceptance with how things are and then letting go of the grief. You can feel the grief, but then not get stuck in it. So the idea is not to get attached to those things that you want and you thought they would be like, and just to say, hey, this is how the things are now, and to somehow really see that you can choose to not be attached to those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It really does. And I really want to touch up on that first step that you said in trying to get help. It's just understanding that you need help. And
Yes.
it's sometimes that's the hardest part, and it's so helpful to have resources like Miss Moy's platform, the that caregiver community where there's resources like there's the burnout quiz to tell you, it'll tell you when you need to start looking help or if you need help.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think sometimes we don't know what resources are out there, and there are resources out there for sure to help. Um, I will also say then to touch upon the other resource is support groups, which addresses the idea of isolation as a topic and as a pain point. And you really named these three really burning pain points that all caregivers have: the burnout, ambiguous grief, and the isolation. The isolation happens oftentimes when we try to do it all ourselves.
Yeah.
Or, and it's because, like, oh, we don't want to burden someone else, oftentimes, right? Or it may be like, oh, I don't want to ask for help because that's a sign of weakness. um, I think I'm Asian American, and so my parents are immigrants, and so we were kind of taught, not explicitly, but implicitly, kind of
Yeah.
taught, right, that, oh, you should do everything yourself. You don't ask people for help. It's kind of shameful. You should be able to do things on your own. But let me tell you, caregiving really is a team effort, ideally, because if we talk about it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it also takes a village to caregive for someone who is either aging or chronically ill.
Yes,
It's
yes.
right? It's a lot for just one person to do all of these things and play so many different roles. It's wonderful if we can get some help. And support groups is one way, and there are free support groups out there that can help reduce that isolation, that part of it. Because if we feel like we need to do it all on ourselves and we're not talking to other people, then we're really not serving ourselves. When you join a support group or a support group or even just a friend who understands, who's been through this road, um, it's really, you feel that sense of feeling understood. Maybe you might get some advice based on their own caregiving experience, but you definitely don't feel so alone.
Yeah, I love this the support group system, like hearing it from other people who have gone, because I feel like sometimes familiarity is the best source of like help that you can
Mm,
get.
Yeah.
And so I actually did really want to talk about support groups. And luckily, since we do have our very own expert right here who is constantly talking about this topic and is constantly advocating and organizing these types of support groups, I actually wanted to ask you what led you to start Caregiver Wisdom, and how does it actually help people? Like, what do you offer with your platform?
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much for asking. I started a support group after attending a support group, and I realized how I felt like I was coming home. I felt like I found my tribe. I found my people because I was really kind of, quite frankly, white knuckling it all for several years, all on my own. And I just thought I had to.
Yeah.
And, I just didn't know any better. And when I finally joined a support group, in this case, it was a support group for caregivers with my husband's illness, I felt so seen and heard and understood, and just felt like I found my people because there aren't that many people who really truly understood what I was going through. Because my husband's illness is not an illness like cancer that people understood. It made it even more isolating when I tried to explain what he was going through
Yeah.
to other people. So I joined that support group and I loved it. And I loved it so much that I actually started my own. And what had happened was that I started my own primarily because the support group that I was attending, well, it was for all caregivers. It was run by caregivers of let's see, how do I put this? They were parents or moms of adult children with this illness, and so they started talking about topics that weren't as relevant to me.
Yeah.
And so then I actually met someone through that support group who was also a spousal caregiver, just like me, with two young children, same ages, almost exactly as mine. And so we ended up talking on the phone every weekend. And we really got a lot out of being able to connect with someone who really understood all of the different kinds of challenges that we faced. And so I went to the original support group leader and I said, "Oh, I'm so grateful for your group." And I met another caregiver and we've been talking and we were kind of brainstorming, thinking about would it be okay to create a spin-off group for spousal caregivers. And so fortunately for me, she said yes. She gave me her blessing right away. And so I've been running that support group for now 6.5 years. Every month, I come up with a topic to focus our group conversation on. And then we do, quite frankly, I do kind of some live teaching and coaching based on things that I have um, discovered in my journey. And again, with the intention of trying to help others who maybe either new at it or maybe they've been doing it for 20 or 30 years, just like me, and are feeling really jaded and burned out. So I wanted to try to help other people and also, quite frankly, to create a sense of community because it is, again, very isolating.
Yeah, I've talked about community before. It's sometimes community is the best way to resolve your problems, and especially in these types of situations, sometimes like it's what you need. And I know that there's lots of other ways that you can also get help. So there's lots of other professional communities out there. Like I know you, Miss Moy, I know you've done. You said you did Zen. You did coaching and stuff like that. Do you think you
Mhm.
could give us a little bit more about like some other things for like just everyone needs like different options, right? So could you think you could tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. I love this question. I mean, one thing that most people go to right away is, oh, I need to see a therapist. And so I've done that and definitely can be helpful. And I felt like at a certain point, I felt like I was repeating myself over and over. And that was just my own experience. And I feel like that therapy is wonderful and super helpful for a lot of people. And I felt like it was a great piece in my puzzle at that time, and I felt like I needed something else. And so what I've done over the years is just explored all these different options, as you pointed out, and have kind of come up with my own mix, right? And everyone again is different. So I really appreciate this question. So there's therapy. There's also communities, like you mentioned. So that might look like a support group where you meet on Zoom or in real life. There might be online support groups like Facebook. If you use Facebook, they have a lot of Facebook online support type of communities, where it's just all based on messaging, or not messaging, on posting. And I've been members of several of those over the years. And I am still members, and I actually moderate one of those groups. That can be super helpful. And I know that in one of the groups that I belong to, in the online support group space, I felt like even if I wasn't asking a question, just reading other people's posts was helpful, knowing that I wasn't alone. So that was useful too. And the other part of it, I also worked with a coach too. I wasn't a caregiving coach at the time. It was executive coach and then a life coach. And those were also helpful because those were, um, they're different aspects of support. Um, I think a coach, so I'm also now a board certified health and wellness coach. I actually enrolled in a program, a training program, and went through and got tested and all that and put in the hours. So I'm now a board certified health and wellness coach. And I think the difference between therapists and coaches are they're very similar, and there are some small differences, or I would say distinct differences, and just depends on what you need at any point in time of your life. The way it's been explained to me is therapists are really good at looking at your past and how it leads to your present. Some therapists also look at your present. Coaches look at your present and they look at your future. So they're kind of more proactive, like, well, how are you going to act now? If you have a certain goal, how are you going to reach those goals? And support in that way. So kind of like on this continuum of individual support. And then what I do in my group course is I do group coaching. And so then you can do one-on-one group coaching, just like you would have one-on-one therapy sessions. And then with group coaching, it's kind of like the hybrid. It's really cool. It's like you kind of it's a hybrid between having a coach and a teacher, um, as well as having a support group because it's in a group context. So I really love this kind of format, and that's why I offer it. I feel like it's really helpful. And then I think you mentioned also Zen training. So Zen has been really amazing for me and transformed for me. Um, it's a long story about how I got into it, but I'll just say that I was introduced to it probably about 20 years ago and really loved it, resonated. And then I became a mom, and then I became, more of a heavy duty caregiver. And I felt like I didn't have the time to meditate every day. So this kind of goes back to that whole self care thing. I wasn't giving myself that time and space, right? And then only several years later, I came back to the practice, and it's really helped me get through a lot when I've been really gone through stressful times. And so the Zen practice has been helpful in a different level. And I also meet with my Zen teacher weekly. So she offers me support in that way as well. So, and then I also help lead the Zen meditation sessions as a group. So there's that group aspect as well. So I've kind of crafted my own kind of support system in multiple levels over the years. And it's all just kind of evolved as I've evolved as an individual.
Yeah, and like genuinely, I'm so glad that we had this conversation about this because I know, like, I've said it before, mental health looks different for everyone. Like, one person can like something, another person might not like that same thing. But it's so important to understand the different options that you have because there's so many different ways that you can get help. There's always some right fit for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so obviously that's so important, and I actually wanted to get a little bit more into, like, I know you talked about how sometimes you feel like you don't have time, sometimes you don't like have energy because being a caregiver it's a full-time job basically. So I wanted to ask, what are some self-care strategies that you recommend for these times when you feel like you don't have time or you don't have enough energy to actually do stuff like therapy or coaching that might take a little bit more effort?
Yeah, this is a great question. There are probably, I would say, two or three practices that I feel are foundational tools that I teach caregivers about. The first is, I'm just trying to think, which order should I share them in? Okay, I'll share them in order of what I would say are could be priorities. The first is I practice breath work and breath work that techniques that have been really restorative and really strengthen your resilience. So I would say that let's see, how do I describe? I actually have a video on that I could share with you as well as with your listeners if they care to watch it. Kind of a little bit harder to do. Well, I guess I could try. So basically, you want to. There's two main tenets around this breath work, and in which is you want to slow down your breathing. Lots of times we breathe more quickly than we really should. So, meaning that you want to extend a long exhale, basically, to lengthen your breath. So, you want to be able to breathe more slowly and intentionally. And if we're on video, I could do an exercise where I could help you slow down your breath. But for purposes of audio, it would go like one, breathe, and then you take another breath, two, another breath, three. So usually we breathe a little bit faster than that. And I encourage people to try to experiment with breathing more slowly and focusing on a longer exhale than the inhale. That will help slow down your breathing and it'll help with your nervous system regulation. And the second part of this breathing practice that I do is to breathe from your deep belly. Lots of times we do shallow breathing, especially when we're stressed or anxious, and your breathing kind of rises to your chest. Now, you want to visualize the breathing coming from your deep belly. If you put the palm of your right hand 2 inches below your belly button, you want to try to breathe into your hand and see if you can make your hand go up and down by breathing from that part of your body. Now, you're literally breathing from your lungs, but you're trying to move the breathing as if it were coming from your deep belly. And so that actually is your core. If you talk about core exercises, it's that area and it's also the core of your being. So if you can actually breathe from this area like babies do, they can cry so long and hard because they're breathing from this part of their body. And if you ever watch a baby, you'll see that they breathe from this area. And so this is how we naturally should be breathing. And if we can start breathing from this area, we are actually getting more oxygen into our bodies. And we're, again, helping our nervous system really ground ourselves. So those are kind of two techniques with my breath work. I would encourage everyone to try doing that for 5 minutes each day, maybe in the morning, and then gradually increase it to 10 minutes, and then gradually increase it to more than once a day until you can do this automatically. Because this is really teaching you how to breathe correctly, how we used to as babies, will actually really help you be more resilient.
Well, yeah, wow.
So yeah, try that on for size. And I everyone I've taught that to has said that it has really helped them. What I tell people to do is to do that every day as a maintenance thing, and you can do it before you go into a stressful situation, or when you're feeling stressed and anxious already. If you can just take a few minutes to do the simple breathing exercise, it will really help you. It will really help reset your nervous system.
Wow, that's like absolutely amazing because yeah, like that's some you don't need like sometimes help is the smallest things and
Yeah.
sometimes it's just knowing how to do these types of exercises. And I hope if everyone else listening was also like me, they were also doing the exercise as it was being told. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's amazing. And I wanted to keep going on this like positive side of things. So I
Yeah.
kind of just I want to kind of go on caregiving's not always it's not always some harrowing journey. It usually is, but there's a lot of light moments in it too, and I know I've experienced them. So I wanted to ask you, how have you found moments of joy or personal growth in the midst of everything? Cuz I know that's something that a lot of people feel like they won't get as caregivers, but I'm 100% sure a lot of people will still experience these kinds of moments.
Absolutely. I appreciate this question. That's something that I try to emphasize as well. And so that is that realizing you can have grief and you could feel hardship and you can have joy at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. You could say that maybe you experience grief in one moment, you can quickly experience joy in the next moment. And that is, you have to be open to it and you may even need to seek it out, meaning you need to pay attention to the small things. A lot of caregivers, and we'll talk about, in fact, in my last support group meeting, we talked about how, as caregivers, sometimes our world seems like it's shrinking. So in my instance, like, in a lot of people's instance, they may be looking at social media and seeing all their friends and family going on exotic vacations, right? It's summertime right now as we're taping this episode. And then, but you're stuck at home because you're caregiving. And you may feel jealous. You may feel some resentment that you are unable to go and do, fun and adventurous things. Well, the thing is, what I do is I take a walk every day. And what I do is I seek out joy in the little things that I can do. So focusing on what you can do versus what you can't do will bring you so much more joy, and you will appreciate things that a lot of people don't take the time to even witness or observe because they're in a hurry to go to that next meeting or to do whatever they're on their way to do. But if you can take some time to just even look out your window, there is joy to be had for sure.
Yeah, and I honestly like again, like I feel like a lot of people there's another misconception. It's like it's almost like you feel ashamed to feel happy at times cuz like your loved one's going through something so terrible. Like why do you get to be happy while they're not like super happy all the time? And I just feel like stuff like this is really important cuz it really is it's the little things. I mean, you have to let yourself be happy cuz it's not going to do any good. It's just so important to have that own type of self-care to make yourself feel
Yes.
good.
Yes, actually, I'm so glad you mentioned that. So actually, I also write a free weekly email newsletter for caregivers. And so in my last newsletter that just went out earlier this week, I talked about this idea of um, really being like doing this kind of breathing exercise, for example, and strengthening your own resilience before actually giving care, because you will show up differently for your loved one. And so if you can actually um, feel restored and calm and at peace, and perhaps maybe you might want to think about bringing that kind of energy to your loved one. And if you can feel that yourself, then it's more easy to kind of what I would call co regulate when your energy is positive and calm, and you can bring that to your loved one. It's hard for them because they may feel they're in either physical or emotional pain. And you can help bring that light to them through your being, not just your doing. So that's something I wanted to share.
Yeah, I actually I like to compare this a lot. Like when people say stuff like this to me, I like to compare it to like in an airplane, like when the oxygen masks come on, they always say like put your own mask on before you help your child, right? And it's just it's stuff like it's in everything. Like, you can't help others if you're not helping yourself first.
Yes.
So yeah, I truly think that this stuff it's what we all need to hear, because obviously we have no idea what's going on in others' lives. We have nothing. All we can do is make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and having this self-care and these kinds of small moments for ourselves. And on that note, I would like, before I let you go, I just wanted to ask if you would like to leave any last pieces of encouragement or insight that you have with like the caregivers that are listening today, or even just the normal listeners.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I would say that we touched upon a lot of the things, such as you can still find joy. And in fact, maybe you can find more joy actually if you have a certain mindset about it. And I would also say that caregiving can be seen as an amazing personal development journey. So I think it can be a transformative experience. It doesn't have to be a negative one. It can be one filled of personal growth. And that's how, in retrospect, I see my caregiving journey. Sure, in the beginning, it was really difficult. And sure, there will still be challenges. I still face challenges. And I know that I'm stronger for it. And I'm a better person for it. And I feel like it's something that if you can grow to accept that, I actually now embrace it.
Yeah, and that's so important. Like, thank you so much. And so yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for sharing all like what you've gone through. And just truly, I just want to say it again. You are doing wonders for this community with your work. You've gone through so much, and I love that you're creating this platform, and I love that we have these same goals, that to help others, even like despite anything that has happened. So to all my caregivers and affected people listening, I strongly recommend checking out Miss Moy's platform, Caregiver Wisdom, for important resources that could help. So she has articles, she has blog posts, and it's just everything that can help. So, of course, again, thank you so much, Miss Moy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, to my viewers, thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. I know there have been so many delays on my part, but I'm so excited to keep this project going. Be sure to tune in for episode 3, where we'll be talking about caregiving, how it can change your life, and the emotional experiences that come with it, like burnout, grief, and healing. If you're looking for any more updates or resources, you can always find me on Instagram at The Unseen Pillars. And I also encourage you to check out our guest platform at Caregiver Wisdom for more support and insight. Once again, thank you so much for joining me, guys.